Okay, it's 6 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting of the Anacortes Planning Commission to order. Let's start with the roll call.
Commissioner Mills, Commissioner McCombs,
Here.
Commissioner Ryan,
Here.
Commissioner Martin,
Present.
Commissioner Stoneman,
Here.
Commissioner Turetsky,
Here.
Commissioner Courier.
Here.
All right, so we've got a quorum. And next order of business are our minutes of 2:28 and 3:27. Have you had a chance to look them over, everybody? Do we want to do this officially with motions for minutes? I know. Is there a motion to approve both the 2:28 and the 3:27 minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Dretsky, is there a second? Second. Mr. Courier, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Minutes are approved. Okay, the next thing on our agenda are general public comments. So this is the time for people in the audience or online in the audience to talk about anything that you would like to, particularly if it's not already on the agenda. If it's already on the agenda, I'll give you the opportunity to speak then. We ask that you step up to the podium, that you state your name and the city where you live, and we will give you 3 minutes. And I don't see anybody. No? Okay. Then we will move on to number 4. A, which is public hearing. This is a public hearing SDP 2024-0001, Shoreline Substantial Development Permit application for the installation of fiber conduit at Cap Sante Marina, Port of Anacortes. And I guess probably be best to allow people from the audience to speak before we have the presentation, or do you want to do it after the presentation?
Madam Chair, I'm so sorry. We actually have a request from the port to switch the order of agenda items to do the public hearing for the public participation plan first. The staff person that was going to be here to introduce the item for the port had an emergency and he's running a little bit late.
Okay. I don't see a problem with that, if that's okay with the commissioners. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
So we will go to item B. Public comment will be taken. Oh, hang on. I'm reading from the wrong thing. All right, B is 2025 Comprehensive Plan Update, Public Participation Plan, and I see Mr. Coleman here, so looks like we're going to have a presentation, and then I will give you the opportunity for the public to speak.
Good evening, commissioners, members of the public. So we fast forward to our third item of the night. We're going to be talking about the Planning Commission procedures, but it's kind of relevant to what we're doing tonight. Generally, we will have a presentation in a public hearing. We'll have a presentation from the staff, and then if there's like an applicant, then the applicant will have the opportunity to speak, and then public comment. That way, the public has the comments, has more information in their grasp before they make comments. So that's something that we'll talk about. The process of the public hearing is now written down in our Planning Commission procedures. So we'll talk about that third item tonight. So tonight's public hearing that I'm presenting on is for our public participation plan for our 2025 comp plan update. That is for the planning period of 2025 to 2024, which we've had, which we've we're floating the idea of branding it as Anacortes 2025 or Anacortes 2045. Just so it kind of rolls off the tongue a little better than the 2025 periodic update to the comprehensive plan as required by the Growth Management Act. So it may, I don't know, we may just be shortening this Anacortes 2045 in the future. We know it's a little cheeky, but we're growing attached to it. We hope you will too. Trying to have a little fun with it. So I gave this presentation a month ago, and I went into more at length about the comprehensive plan update. But since I did that, I'm going to breeze through this a little quicker. I'll just hit sort of the high points. We need to update our comprehensive plan by the end of 2025. We've created a public participation plan to guide how people are going to have the opportunity to participate in, and as part of that, we've invited a lot of people to the 2045 update process, both on our website and by doing direct email to people, to various organizations that are listed in the PPP. The current comp plan you see up here can be seen on our website, and I give a web link here, and that'll be up on our website. This presentation, so people can just click on it and go to our current one, and then we're doing an update to that. We'll be making population projections, and then we'll be also reviewing employment projections and available housing options for new residents. We'll be reviewing by area median income and making sure that we've got enough housing in all of the income bands that exist in the city. So everybody needs a house. Not everybody can afford an expensive one. So we want to make sure that we're have land use policies and zoning in place to allow for housing in those lower income bands to be constructed. The big change for this 2045 update is we now are required to have a climate element, which will address resiliency and greenhouse gas emissions. The periodic updates is when we update our urban growth area boundaries if necessary based on our population and employment projections, and we'll be reviewing our critical areas ordinance. We're projected to grow by about 5,000 people between 2022 and 2045, and we're projected to grow by about 3,145 jobs in that same time frame. I apologize, I'll go through this quick because I've already presented it, and I just wanted to make sure that it's available for people that are joining us for the first time. You can always look back to the March 27th for more in-depth, March 27th, 2024 Planning Commission presentation that I gave if people are interested in more detailed information. I mentioned for our housing portion of this that we now have to provide housing for the various income bands, and those are what you see on the slide right now: the 0 to 30 AMI, 31 to 51, 51 to 80, 81 to 100% AMI, and so on. You'll see that it's weighted heavily towards the lower end of the AMI. You can see that we need a lot more housing in that area, and that's because we have a deficit there already. And what we're trying to achieve at the end of 2045 is some sort of balance of accommodating all of the types of housing that is necessary for everybody who lives in Anacortes or will be living in Anacortes in 2045. So the state has recognized that we have a great shortage in especially the 0 to 50% bands, those two bands combined, and then also still a great need in those middle bands, as well as, of course, we're still going to need to provide for upper bands also. I talked last time about trends in housing. You can see that one of the ways that we try to achieve more affordable housing is by providing more variety of housing. And so In 2019, after major updates in 2016 to the comp plan, the city completed changes to their development regulations to allow more housing types within various zones. So that's largely we allowed for middle housing, which includes duplexes, triplexes, cottage developments, and then those would be allowed in like the residential areas, the lower density residential areas, and in a greater availability of smaller unit multifamily housing in the residential zones and commercial zones that are the higher density areas. And after those changes in 2019 through 2023, what you can see is a change in housing types on these graphs. So it shows the number of permits issued for the various housing types. You can see back in 2019, it used to be largely single-family residences. And as you progress through the current years, it's a more even split of different types of housing. And so that, we believe, reflects a need in the community for these different housing types, a desire of developers to provide these different housing types. And it also indicates that that perhaps our zoning code in the past was making it so that these other housing types weren't possible. Now, that's evident by the data, but we haven't, done deep research to prove definitively that. But it's pretty apparent that our zoning code was holding back these different types of housing that the community desired. And so we feel like we've made a good strides in making it possible for the community and the development community to provide the residents of Anacortes the desired housing and needed housing, as opposed to the largely single family. So hopefully this is a good development. I know the Housing Affordability and Community Services Committee of the council is committed to trying to provide more affordable housing in the city, and so this does meet that goal. We're going to be studying the available land in the city right now. We're still working on our land capacity analysis. We made great strides, and when we got the work back from our consultant, we then are working with them to refine that information, and hopefully we'll have that to you in not the next Planning Commission meeting, but the one after that. So the second Planning Commission meeting in May, we hope to be talking in depth about our land capacity analysis, and that'll really tell us how much land we have available to accommodate our projected growth, and both residential and jobs. And from there, we'll be able to have a really good view of whether or not we need to change our zoning to allow for more housing, or if we need to expand our urban growth area, or if we already have enough land and enough zoning to accommodate our projected growth. We don't know. Could be any one of those three. We'll find out and present that to you next month. Here's our zoning map. It's always available on our website. Didn't want to talk too much more about that tonight, because what we're here tonight to talk about is our public participation plan. I've been talking about our Anacortes 2045 is required update by the State Growth Management Act, and one of the requirements of that Growth Management Act is that we have a public participation program to encourage residents, stakeholders, tribes, and state agencies to participate early and often. So that is the document that we presented to you today. In the back of the room, we have some printouts of the most recent modified one. We made a couple of minor updates to it since you saw this last, and that updated one has underlines and strike-throughs. It's mostly just underlines explaining what's different from the last time you saw it. And really the only significant changes is that we now have our web page up, so we have our web link on it. We now have our comprehensive plan at cityofanacortes.org email address available. IT hadn't gotten us that in time for publishing last time, so now anybody who wants to participate or receive notices about what's going on with this 2025 to 2045 update can sign up at compplan@cityofanacortes.org, and we'll send them automatic notifications of meetings such as this. And we also added in some different participants that we anticipate that will be key members of this. This is intended to be a living document, so we'll probably be updating it as we get further comments from people, and we expect comments tonight, so this is just the most recent draft. To the other thing about, so I was talking about we need to make sure that we're reaching out to people and getting early and often to all the stakeholders. We're also required to have a focus on reaching members of the community that otherwise don't have the typical ability to show up at a planning commission meeting or have access to the city website. Lots of people are working and don't pay much attention to city goings-on, so we want to go out to the public and have an outreach program where we can reach people where they are instead of expecting people to come to where we are. So we talk about that in here. As far as the comprehensive plan update, the city is going to be ultimately making a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners for our urban growth area boundaries. But otherwise, the city's going to be updating our own comprehensive plan. The Planning Commission is largely going to be holding the public hearings for that and workshops. So this is the main forum for people to participate in the comp plan update. And then, of course, City Council makes the ultimate decision, and they can hold public hearings too if they wish. But this is the least formal way to do it, where it's a meeting where we can be focused just on that one issue instead of the many issues at hand that the City Council addresses weekly. So that's one of the largest functions of the Planning Commission, is to hold the public hearings and review the details of the comp plan and make a well-educated and well-informed by the community recommendation to the council, and the council can look back at your record and say, oh, okay, Planning Commission really dug in on this and we think they did good work, and so we feel comfortable accepting it without holding a bunch of their own public hearings. That's the goal. If we do our job well here at the Planning Commission, the City Council can usually approve something just based on your record. Okay, this is the point where I go kind of point by point through the public participation plan. We did this last time, so I'll try to be brief again. The goals of the public participation plan is to build awareness about the comprehensive plan, the development regulations and the process under which they're developed, adopted, and amended, and how the public can participate in the process. Hence why I'm sending out emails to people and putting it on the website and just trying to get the word out to people that I talk to on the street regularly. We want to spur a productive community conversation about Anacortes' long-term challenges and opportunities. We want to elevate the voices of the communities most affected by past and current discriminatory land use and housing practices, those who are vulnerable to potential impacts of plan outcomes and or who are historically underrepresented in the planning process. This is what I was talking to a few minutes ago about. Not everybody participates in this process for various reasons. Availability, just too busy with family, English as a second language barriers, whatever it might be. There's a lot of reasons why people are not showing up to a planning commission meeting. Most of these people were invited. So we need to do, under the law, we need to do a better job of reaching out to groups such as youth, people of color, renters, and low-income individuals. We're going to focus resources on soliciting input on elements of the update process likely to be of greatest interest and impact to the community. So the big changes to our comp plan this year is obviously we're adding a whole new element, the climate element. So that's all brand new. So we're going to put a lot of focus on that. And we received a large grant from the state to do that. We've accepted a $500,000 grant for creating a new climate element. And so we're going to have a whole bunch of different meetings on that. Special focus where our consultants will have, we're trying to arrange 3 separate meetings throughout the years where they come and present at various key points of the development of that plan. And the other big change is housing. We did our housing action plan earlier last year, and so we want to incorporate that into our housing element. So there'll be probably some significant changes there. Land use changes are going to be significant because the new population and employment projections dictate that we need to figure out where we're going to put everybody. And so those are the major changes that we're expecting to work on. So we're going to also offer engagement opportunities that are relevant to all audiences. What does that mean? That means like not everybody likes these meetings, so we're going to try to get our Facebook page back up. City's not real good at outreach over social media, but we're going to do what we can, and we've got a list of other items in here, ways that we're going to reach out. All right, so in this plan, we also identify several categories of participants that we're going to reach out to. Tribal governments are a must. That's part of the state regulations are that we work with the tribes and make sure that they have the opportunity to participate. Members of the public, obviously, that's everybody. Non-government organizations, elected and appointed officials. We've sent emails out to a lot of the non-governmental agencies, and we have representatives from them here today, as well as service providers. I won't give everybody a shout out, but hopefully some people will get up and speak if they feel moved to do so. Local cities and the county are our partners. O'Connor and Oak Harbor, I've made sure that we've personally invited them because we provide them water. So our comp plan and our growth does affect them. So what are our communication tools? According to our plan here, we have a web page, subscription email list, city contact email. This is that comp plan at cityofanacortes.org that I was mentioning about. We intend to do some direct mailing, especially when we get to the climate element part. We're going to be having surveys that we need to get out to people. That's part of why we get $500,000 from the state, is to make sure that we're doing really good outreach for this process. News releases, social media, and then of course A-Town is Our Town, the quarterly newsletter. So look for this upcoming one. We have a little blurb about the 2025 to 2045 update in that, as well as a plug for updates to other public works plans. They're also working on their water plan, their stormwater plan, their wastewater plan, general plan. So it is the year of the plan in Anacortes. We also intend, I was talking about our outreach methods. We're going to do what we can to have open houses, surveys, targeted stakeholder interviews. We are going to be creating a climate policy advisory team for the climate element. So those are going to be various stakeholder organizations and individuals that are kind of relevant to climate impact. And that'll be a smaller working group that will provide policy recommendations. There's also going to be a stakeholders group, a larger group than the climate policy advisory team, that will also have a say in this before it all moves on to the council for approval. We hope to have some pop-up tabling, and I think there was a question about what does that mean. That means, you know, setting up a table out front of a grocery store and saying, "Hi, I'm John Coleman with the City of Anacortes Planning Department. Have you heard about our comprehensive plan update coming soon near you?" And maybe getting some engagement with people that would otherwise not be engaged with the city. And so we'll be looking for other pop-up tabling locations, and we're open to recommendations. That's why we're here today. Community and civic groups have already given several presentations to community and civic groups, and they've been included in our public participation plan. And public meetings and workshops like this, and then a student and teacher outreach program, which we're probably going to need a little help from our consultant to really get us up to speed on how to get that going. And that brings us to our schedule. I mentioned right now we're working on our public participation plan. We've already established our website and email list, and so we're just working on project awareness right now. We're going to be, you know, the next step I was talking about, the land capacity analysis, so we can determine how are we going to handle, you know, how much land do we have to accommodate how we're going to grow, and then we'll be having workshops and open houses, pop-up tabling all through the spring and summer. Planning Commission work sessions are starting now. And will pretty much be ongoing throughout this entire process. The Climate Policy Advisory Team meetings, we hope to be going in May. That's probably a little soon, but those will be going through early next year. Student-teacher outreach should be starting now. School's going to be ending soon, believe it or not. And so we got to get that going, and then we can do that again in the fall. We will be bringing draft comprehensive plan elements to review in the new year, and that's really going to be the big part. So, like, leading up to that is the outreach, getting people involved, saying, "Hey, this is what we're anticipating we're going to need to do, you know, based on how we need to grow. We want your involvement," and then from those involvement and those stakeholder interviews and everything that we do, feedback that we get back will go into the draft comprehensive plan elements, the various elements, the transportation plan element, the land use element, the housing element, all of the elements. We'll synthesize the information that we've received into those, and then we'll bring those draft elements to the Planning Commission for your review and more public feedback. More public feedback and more public feedback until we get it right. That will be going through March of 2025. We hope to, by then, have at least a recommendation for our urban growth area boundaries change if we need to do that, because we need to get any urban growth area changes to the county to review through their process. It'll have to go to their planning commission and their county board of county commissioners for approval before the end of 2025. So we want to get that part of it to them by March of next year, and that way they'll have many months to actually approve it by the end of 2025. In the meantime, we can continue refining some of the bigger changes that aren't dependent on that land use, that urban growth area boundaries, so our climate policies, our transportation plan, and our housing plans. So we'll continue to work on those after we send out the land use element. Now, they're all tied together, I understand, so there's going to be some complexity there, but I think this planning commission is going to be up to the task. So that is our plan. We also have a giant table here that on the big screen kind of makes sense. On a little piece of paper, it's probably hard to see. So we should probably print one out like this for people to see, so you can see when we're going to be working on what. And this is going to continue to be refined as we include more information. And it's not just one page, it's 2 pages. So there's a lot going on here for people to review. I mentioned, so the next steps, we've already accepted 2 grants from the Department of Commerce, $125 for the comp plan itself and $500,000 for the climate element in specific. So that is a total of $625,000 that we've received for this project. The lion's share of that is going to our consultants who are going to be writing this and collecting the data and synthesizing everything that comes to you, and they'll be bringing you the written changes, but staff here is coordinating and doing a lot of the research, local research, local outreach. So we are keeping a lot of that money for us. I think we're keeping over $150,000 for staff effort, and that's including mailings and whatever we need to do for social media and branding and all of that. And tonight we're having a public hearing on the public participation plan. And there you go. Anacortes 2045 is underway. And unless the commissioners have any questions, I'd really like to open up the public hearing part of this.
Just a question. I know I have questions, and I think Mr. Ryan said he has a question or two. Should we ask the questions and then have the public hearing, or have the public hearing and then ask our questions?
It's up to you. We try to be informal.
So I think I'd like to hear from the public first, and then let the commissioners ask whatever questions they have.
Great.
So at this time, I am opening the public hearing for the public participation plan for the Anacortes 2025. We ask that you state your name, your city. We give you 3 minutes to speak about the participation plan.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Sandy Finney. I'm here wearing 3 hats. First, I'm a resident of Anacortes, so I'm here wearing that hat. Second, I've been, and I work for Community Action of Skagit County, and I am involved in our strategic planning. So I'm wearing that hat as well, just being fascinated with the planning process. So I look forward to being a part of this process and learning from it. And the third hat I'm wearing is as an employee of Community Action, and we, of course, our mission is to stabilize people who are experiencing poverty and equip them to exit poverty. And so one of the things I just want to say, other than I love the title, Anacortes, is that I really appreciate how much you've put into the plan a robust series of plans for reaching out to people who might not otherwise be engaged in the process, and thinking about how to reach out to those people in the population who might not be engaging on their own in the planning process. And I look forward to having dialogues about how we might be able to support that process and provide that voice. So that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Crystal Stedham. I wasn't really planning on speaking this evening, but I've been working with John and some other folks within the county. I'm the CEO of Skagit Transit. We're in the process of doing a study ourselves. We're doing a long-range transit plan. We also have done quite a bit of community outreach. We've done a number of outreach meetings here in Anacortes, one in Guaymas. I actually did a presentation here a couple of weeks ago for the city of Anacortes, the city council. Familiar with the GMA, the growth that the county is going through, some of the requirements, working really closely with some of the community partners to include SCOG. Some folks from city council have been to a number of our meetings aside from the one that I did here. I just really want to encourage those of you that are making the decisions in growth to please incorporate public transportation into your plans, because we want to be partners with all of you. We're working really closely, as I said, with SCOG and the county, and I just want to encourage you guys to please consider us when you're considering growth. Community Action has been, we work closely with Community Action and a number of the nonprofit organizations within the community too. And a lot of the demographics that John spoke about are also a lot of the folks that we serve too. So again, please, when you're looking, look at transit-oriented development when you're planning your growth in the city. Oh, and I forgot to mention I'm a resident of Anacortes too. So thank you.
Thank you. Other person, come on up.
Good evening. I'm Brenda Treadwell, Director of Planning, Properties, and Environmental for the Port of Anacortes. I'm also a resident of Anacortes. I would just like to thank Director Coleman for inviting the Port here to listen to your public participation plan. It doesn't quite roll off the tongue as Planacortes does, which I'm a little bit jealous I didn't think of first. You know, as a fellow public organization who engages in planning efforts, we understand how important it is to get to the community at the table while the plans are being developed, rather than, you know, looking fewer to the future and having decisions being pending and having the community feel like they weren't aware. So I appreciate your robust engagement plan, and I'd also like to invite Director Coleman or whomever else with the city to come to our summer concert series. We found that is a great way to reach our local community, particularly the Wednesday night concerts, our local, more local crowd. So your pop-up is invited. Thank you.
Thank you. Great idea. Anybody else? Mr. Coleman.
I don't have anything more to say, but
All right.
you had some questions, so I'll step to the mic.
I think Mr. Ryan has got a question. We'll let you start off.
Yeah, Mr. Coleman, I did have a question. Will there be a GIS map for the different land types that we're looking at expanding to for our plan?
So yeah, we've got a really good GIS department. So and so does our consultants. I don't know exactly what sort of GIS outreach we're going to have right now, but we'll have plenty of maps for review as part of this. Yeah, mapping is really, especially when it comes to the land capacity analysis that we'll be looking at next month, and you know, potential changes for urban growth area boundaries. That's very much map driven. So,
And that'll be included on the website for Anacortes.
so you know, that's a good point. Everything, all of the documents that we're going to be presenting to the Planning Commission, and if we have surveys or reports, that'll all be on our comprehensive plan update webpage, which is up here on the screen, the anacortes.wa.1650/2025 comprehensive plan update. So that's the clearinghouse for all the information that is going to be presented to the community as part of this process. So that's where you'll be looking for any information on this. And that's where we would have things like maps.
And then, are we going to be working like pretty much hand in hand with the wastewater plan, taking into account for some of those areas that we're thinking about annexing?
So if we were, well, we don't know if we're going to need to expand our urban growth area yet. But if we do, yes, we will be looking at what it would take for us to expand sewer, water. Well, we probably already serve all the areas with water, but what it would take for us to expand our sewer into that area. So we at least need to have a plan to say what it would take to do so, whether that be, simply serving it by extending lines to the area and having it all fall by gravity, or if we need to install pump stations. And that frankly will inform whether or not areas should reasonably be included in the urban growth area. If it's going to take 2 pump stations to serve an area, that becomes a little bit cost prohibitive and maybe not the best place. So that's exactly the kind of stuff that we'll be looking at in detail as we go through this process.
And then one more. So are we going to be, is the building department going to be handling all of this with the Anacortes getting out, and do we have enough staff for that?
Like I said, we have been given $625,000 worth of grants to perform the update process. Most of that work is going to be done by consultants, and they'll be taking much of the money. And then, like I said, I think we've left about $150,000 for staff time. And I was going to mention later tonight, how staffing has been. So it's gonna be taxing, but I think that's what we're here for.
Thank you.
It's a priority.
Okay, other commissioners? Oh, okay, I have a couple questions. You mentioned the housing deficit at the lower areas. We're already at a housing deficit at those lower income brackets. And so I'm just interested in finding the historical data on that, and also on the employment projections. So I'm assuming the 3,000 or so new jobs would be in the lower paid jobs if the people coming are in the lower brackets of income. So I'm just interested in finding where is the data? How did we arrive at those projections?
So we'll bringing, I presented some of the housing and employment projection information to the Planning Commission a couple months ago. I can bring more detailed information when we bring the land capacity analysis. That's going to be built on, through the Skagit Council of Governments, which is the regional transportation agency, but we also have worked together through all the jurisdictions in the county for them to also be our growth management assistants also. So they have one planner on staff that helps with the regional growth management process, and two or three other staff also work part-time on it when they're not working on transportation things. So through them, they hired a consultant that helped figure out the numbers for our projections. And so there is a methodology document that they provided, and we'll make sure that that's available if it's not already up on our 2025 website.
I recall the things that you're saying. I recall the Skagit County governments and how it was the projections were allocated and all of that. I looked at the Department of Commerce website to see historical trends for population. I find that. I can find the trend line. It makes perfect sense. and probably these do too, but I haven't been able to find any historical data that you can say, oh, we really are going to have 3,000 new jobs in these particular sectors, or we really are going to have more than 50% of our population growth will be in the very lowest AMI. I can't find that. That's why I'm asking for where is that data?
So that's available in the methodology. There's also several interactive spreadsheets, Excel spreadsheets that have that show that information and different ways of looking at it, and turning on levers and switches in various different ways to give different projections and different outcomes based on different assumptions. So it's actually quite a complex document, and the methodology explains how, like, which triggers and switches were flipped to go in the projection that we went with at the county level. And those projections were approved by the Skagit Council of Government Steering Committee, which is the mayors from all of the cities and the county commissioners. So all of that data is available there. Now remember, the jobs, just because we have a showing on this map, on this chart here, table, excuse me, just because we have more in the lower doesn't imply that we're expecting more lower paying jobs in Anacortes in the future. This is also trying to make up for the amount of need right now, in addition to, projected future growth. So that's why it's weighted this much on the lower end. And another smaller part of that is and wherever a job may be, the people that are making lower amounts are expected to live in cities, because in the county you can't provide low-income housing, because low-income housing not as a rule, but almost in all instances is going to be in a multifamily situation, closer to services, especially in the 0 to 30 AMI, that's supported housing likely, and so that's going to be your housing authorities and agencies that operate within cities. Under the Growth Management Act, you can't put the multifamily housing out in a rural area. And also, even if we did, it wouldn't make sense, because that's not where the services are. For people that are at the 0 to 30, transportation is an issue, so you wouldn't want to build a multifamily building out in some place where they don't have access to grocery stores and other services. So the guidance through the Department of Commerce is that 0 to 50% AMI housing is expected to happen in urban areas. So the people that might be working in rural areas, making a lower wage, are going to also need to live in cities, because there's no housing, not that type of housing in the county, largely. I mean, there's ADUs and people sharing homes, but we're talking about new units being created here. So we're not talking about existing units. So when you're creating new units, those are going to be more expensive. So no one's going to build a $500,000 home and then expect somebody in the 0 to 30 AMI to be able to afford something like that. Also, the 0 to 30 is potentially not employed, might be disabled or retired. So drawing a nexus between jobs and the housing, while there is a clear correlation, it's not entirely accurate, because of people maybe not working or unable to work. Those are the people in those lower brackets too. So it is complicated. Throwing these housing bans in it and making sure that we're accommodating I think I tried to drive home the point at our last meeting, and I think I've skipped over it today, is we don't have to provide 0 to 30 AMI housing. We don't have to provide 31 to 50% housing. We need to make sure that we have policies and zoning in place so that it can be built. So it's not that the city has to find money to do it. We can, but that's not what our comp plan directive is. We just need to make sure we've got land use goals, land use policies, development regulations that allow for all the different types of housing that we project a need for. And I will get you that data. There is a lot. Be careful what you ask for. Our housing.
Well, I'm just a simple person. I just really like trend lines. I like to see here's the history, and therefore here's the projection. That's what I would like. Complex formulas, not so much.
It gets complicated. So the Office of Financial Management gives us our initial projections of how much growth they expect in Skagit County. We used the Office of Financial Management population figures. They do estimates every year and then recalibrate at the census every 10 years. And so that's how we know what our population is from year to year. We do that count on April 1st every year. We just completed that and sent them all of our data as far as new units and housing units lost, types of units. That was all sent off to them. So by July, we're expecting them to tell us how many new people have moved to Anacortes between April 1st of 2023 and April 1st of 2024 based on the data that we gave them. So they track all that demographic information, including housing information. And then who else is involved? And then Department of Commerce provided us the HAPT tool. Do you know what HAPT stands for? Housing. It's a model that we put our population information, our population projections into, and it's a complex spreadsheet. And it, after you enter that information and a bunch of other assumptions, it tells you what these housing bands. And so it was our consultant that used the HAPT tool to churn out the numbers that we eventually presented to SCOG, and SCOG adopted. I'll be happy to explain. It's long and complex, and I think I've went into it a little bit in previous meetings, but I'm happy to explain in person to anybody if I'm not doing a good job now. Sometimes it's easier for me to show with the materials in front of me.
I have one more idea. I love Miss Treadwell's idea about coming to the music concerts. I was thinking about everybody gets utility bills. Maybe we can do some advertising and stuff it in the utility bills too.
That we already intend to use our utility bill as the mailing.
Oh, I'm so glad you had such a great idea.
That's a great idea. We'll do that.
Okay. Anything else from the commissioners? Okay, then I think what I need to do is close the public hearing, and I will entertain motion to accept the public participation plan.
Motion that we accept the public participation plan.
I second that motion.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to accept the public participation plan as presented. Any further discussion? If not, can we please call roll on that?
Commissioner McCombs?
Yes.
Commissioner Ryan?
Yes.
Commissioner Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Stoneman?
Yes.
Commissioner Jaretsky?
Yes.
Commissioner Courier?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Now we're going to go back to 4A, SDP 2024-001 Shoreline Substantial Development Permit Application for the installation of fiber conduit at Cap Sante Marina, Port of Anacortes. And I see Ms. Gregg is there.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Martin, and good evening, everyone. My name is Libby Grage. I'm the planning manager in the Planning, Community, and Economic Development Department for the city. And I'd like to thank Mr. Coleman for setting up my presentation for me. I'm ready to go. So yes, we are here this evening to talk about a permit application numbers SDP 2021-0004, and the project location is at the Cap Santa Marina, 1019Q Avenue. The applicant is the Port of Anacortes.
Quick question.
Yep.
SDP 2021-004?
Sorry about that. I mixed up the numbers. It's 2024-0001.
Okay.
Sorry
perfect.
about that. The contact person is Kevin Anderson with the port, and the property owner is also the Port of Anacortes for the properties involved in this application. The proposal is to install fiber conduit at the Cap Santa Marina to provide bandwidth for growing data needs at the marina and surrounding areas. The total length of the conduit, which is showing on this map right here. So here is the harbor master's office, if folks can see my cursor. And then the esplanade goes to the north, northeast, and around the corner up to the JKL dock, where there is currently construction happening for the new parking area and the RV park. So that's the extent of the project area. Will include 1,250 lineal feet of conduit. The trench will be approximately 1 foot deep by 4 inches wide, and there will be 2 1-inch diameter PVC conduit pipes with locate tape within the trenches. As I mentioned, this is a shoreline substantial development permit application requiring a Type 3 Planning Commission review, which means that the Planning Commission holds the public hearing and also makes the decision on this permit application. A little history of the project. I'll try to go through this quick. So the applicant held a mandatory pre-application meeting and a mandatory neighborhood pre-application meeting in January of this year. The formal application for a shoreline substantial development permit was submitted on January 8th. The application was deemed complete February 5th. The notice of application and public hearing was published and distributed per the City of Anacortes code requirements on March 6th. The public comment period ended on April 5th, 2024. And tonight we are here having a public hearing on the project. Talked about this a little bit already, but just a closer up view to get you oriented on where this project is taking place. The Cap Santa Marina, Fidalgo Bay is just over here to the east. Anthony's Restaurant, Harbor Master's Office, and this white dashed line is showing the project area. The yellow colored band here is representing shoreline jurisdiction, which is shorelands within 200 feet of the ordinary high water mark. And so proposals that are within that area typically require shoreline permitting. The shoreline environment designation for the project area is an urban shoreline environment designation. Just going a little bit more into detail about the project details, which I'm sure that I don't need to because I think the port is going to talk about this a little too. But just to summarize, the project will include the use of hand tools and power equipment for the trenching. The excavated materials are proposed to be laid on a tarp or board to prevent them from entering the water. The conduit will be laid and metallic locate tape placed over the conduit. Then the grade of the impacted area will be restored to pre-project conditions. Where the substrate is not suitable for conduit burial, which includes kind of the area right up here where the esplanade bends towards the east. The conduit is proposed to be mounted to the side of the esplanade with brackets. And then finally, once the conduit is placed, the fiber lines will be pulled through the conduit. Just providing a couple of site photos. This is looking south down towards the harbor master's office down here. And then I just turned around and took a picture to the north, showing where the esplanade, there's the snag boat, I forgot the name.
Preston.
The Preston, oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot that. There that is. And then just a closer view of where the esplanade turns to the east and the ongoing construction activities here up at the JKL parking lot. So as I mentioned, within shoreline jurisdiction, development is subject to the policies and development regulations that are within the City of Anacortes' adopted Shoreline Master Program. And I kind of excerpted a little section of the SMP to show that, well, marinas are a permitted use in the urban shoreline environment designation. This particular project has been classified as an accessory utility. And what the SMP says is that accessory utilities are on-site utility features serving a primary use, which would be the marina in this case, and that they are reviewed as appurtenances to the primary use. Shoreline substantial development decision criteria is outlined in AMC 1816-090. And went through some of those, or all of the criteria and applicable regulations in your staff report that you have in your packet. Some of the key points in that staff report are that based on staff's review of the application documents, the project is consistent with the applicable Shoreline Master Program policies and development regulations, including the urban shoreline environment regulations, the specific use regulations for marinas and accessory utilities, and also environmental protection standards. The project is anticipated to result in no net loss of shoreline ecological functions, and based on staff's analysis, that is based primarily on the fact that the site is completely armored with a continuous rock bulkhead, and it contains minimal habitat for terrestrial plants and animals. There will be no work occurring below the ordinary high water mark. One of the project conditions is to provide an erosion and sedimentation control plan for the project to ensure that sediment's not going to enter into the adjacent marina. And then finally, the site is planned to be restored to the pre-project configuration or alternatively enhanced conditions from the existing state. And based on all of that, staff's recommendation is that the Planning Commission approve the application for the Shoreline Substantial Development Permit, subject to the proposed conditions of approval in your staff report. That's the conclusion of my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission might have. I know that the applicant is here and would probably like to come up and make some remarks. And this is also a public hearing, as you know. And then potentially the Planning Commission could deliberate and make a decision on this project. So are there any questions for me?
Hey, once again, I have a question. It's, I think, not really a big deal, but on your recommendations, you list 9 different recommendations. And the last one talks about progress has to happen within 2 years after, and then 5-year permitting authorization. I just wonder why number 9 is there, if this is something that's going to happen this spring.
Sure. Well, sometimes things don't go according to plan, and projects, get extended out longer than, what the anticipated time frame was. The Shoreline Management Act actually has a requirement for these timing thresholds. So it is something that's been incorporated into our SMP to be consistent with the Shoreline Management Act.
Okay.
And I think it's to ensure that projects do get completed within a timely manner, so they're not hanging out, for long periods of time, and codes change, and they may still be vested under older codes. So
Okay.
that's the reason for that.
Okay. Would the port like to come up and say anything?
Hello, just speak. Oh, thank you, everyone. Sorry I was a little late today.
That's okay. Would you state your name for us?
Kevin Anderson, Port of Anacortes.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this is, in its genesis, it's a way to provide service to the rest of the marina. We have point-to-point Wi-Fi that's really not up to the bandwidth that's needed. And that's why we're installing this fiber conduit. We anticipate using 1, but while we're in there, we're gonna do 2. And they're both pretty small, yay big around. It's only about 1 foot deep, so comparable to kind of like what you see for irrigation. And we chose the route on the inside, just waterward of the Esplanade, because that would limit disruption to paved surfaces, public access, and just make the project go smoother. It's kind of, there's a narrow band of substrate between riprap and Esplanade where you can really put that in there. It doesn't involve any concrete cutting or breaking up of hard surfaces. So it's a pretty simple project, I think. If you have any particular questions about this, I'd be happy to answer them. And if I'm unable to, we have our project manager here, Jenkins Dawson, who's really driving this project forward. So again, thank you guys.
Questions from the commissioners? Mr. Ryan?
Yeah, so when you're gonna, it sounds like you're gonna surface mount part of that when you're coming around the corner there. Is that gonna be a metal conduit, or is that gonna be something that's not gonna be affected by the caustic environment?
I anticipate we're using the consistent material, sort of a UV stabilized PVC that'll be mounted with metal brackets. Right there at that corner, when it makes the bend, there's a lot of big chunks of riprap right up next to the Esplanade. And instead of moving those pieces of riprap and laying them back in, which requires much larger equipment, we figured it would be more expeditious just to use some concrete anchors and anchor them along that bend.
And is there, just out of curiosity, because I'm always looking at construction done along the shorelines and a lot of failures with galvanized material, is there going to be stainless brackets available just to reduce that maintenance and having to change those out within a reasonable amount of time?
I do not know, but I would defer that question to Jenkins.
Awesome.
Sorry, he's like construction manager. He knows the stuff.
Good evening. Jenkins Dawson, 317 Commercial Avenue. That's on the address. Yeah, Commercial Avenue, Port Anacortes. We just moved a couple of weeks ago. So anyway, yes, the bracket we usually typically go with marine gray, stainless 308 or 318, just to make sure the longevity of the system works. Yes, so we have those marine gray brackets to anchor that to the Arena curve from 9th Street, Arena Bend, heading out east. Yeah.
And thank you, yeah, because I just, we go through all the effort to do that, and the cost of labor outweighs the cost of
Right, yeah.
some upgraded materials, so I appreciate that
Right.
answer. And you
Yeah.
guys looking into that ahead of time.
One more question. This came from a resident, I guess, talking about the and I have no idea. He talked about the industry standard for fiber is 18 to 36 inches. Is he wrong? We only need 12 inches? I have no idea.
Yeah, with typical low voltage fiber, we usually go about 12 inches or so deep. When you go with primary electrical conductors, they need to go 3 feet per electrical code, but this is just low voltage fiber, so not super high power electrical. With electrical, yes, you need to go 36 inches deep.
Okay. Mr. Dretsky?
Yeah, the map that we saw early with the white dots on it, it didn't go all the way to the east and it didn't go all the way to the south. Will this service the whole marina, the area that was shown in that map?
Right. A few years back, we actually did a similar installation from the fuel dock at the South Seafarers Way up to the Harbor Master office. We did a similar type installation in the conduit underneath the promenade in front of, basically from SMP, come around the web locker in front of Anthony's back to the Harbor Master. So this is just to go from the Harbor Master office to where we have the RV park construction being done right now.
Will it service all the docks all the way to the east also, at the northeastern corner of the marina?
This will service up to the RV park we are constructing right now. We have the point-to-point for the eastern dock, and we'll make that determination. We'll work with our IT to make a determination if we have to. There may potentially be some spare conduits that was built back in 1984 where I have to put an as-built and see what's spare. Typically, when you do underground installation, you provide spare conduits like we're doing right now. We have some spare conduits in there. So there may be spare conduits that we have to run services up north, but that'll be determined in the future. Right now, we're just heading out to the RV park.
Your intention, though, is to offer the service to the entire marina.
We already have wider service throughout. This is just to bring our RV park online with the hard service connection to the system.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else from our online commissioners?
Seattle thinks the plan sounds great. Thanks.
No questions. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Since we've opened this as a public hearing, I am inviting members of the public to come and speak. Going once. Is there
Yes,
someone-
hello. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, if you would state your name and your city, and we will give you 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Members of the City Planning Commission, my name is Ashland Chidester. I am a resident of Anacortes, and I am also the owner of Megacorp Telecommunications, also located in Anacortes. Also, I am a certified fiber optics engineer. The main certifying body is the FOA, Fiber Optics Association. I would like to take this moment to submit a few questions, comments, I guess, more likely. The first one being avoiding the surface mounting. Address from Kevin. When I take a look on this page here, he said that the route was chosen to minimize disruption, or let's see, at the section of the route where the Esplanade bends to the east, the conduit will be surface mounted to the side of the existing Esplanade slab with brackets. Okay, due to the substrate in this portion of the route are not suitable for burial of conduit consisting mostly of riprap and quarry walls. Okay, so we went out there and we did a site survey, and so they could bypass that just by drilling in through it. If they use the proper actual conduit for that, they can actually bypass that, because that's actually going to be rather unsightly when they put that and they bolt that to that wall out there. When you have all of those RVs and everything there, that's kind of not going to be good, and you shouldn't be mounting it like that. Okay, to address the proper trench burial depth, as he said before, no, that's incorrect. It needs to be 18 inches. They're doing 12 inches, which is something that they can do, but due to the substrate and the environment, it's recommended to do 2 feet in every direction almost to give yourself that adequate spacing. So you're really shortchanging yourself and doing a subpar kind of a job at this point, I would say. So the next part we want to go, we were looking for more specifics when I was looking through this project. I mean, technical data. I need a cable slack, bin radius, splicing locations, because what about the testing of this line once it in? Okay, we can move on to the testing and verifying next, I guess. Let's see. I wanted to hear more about the bit error rate, the fiber loss, those other fiber characteristics that we were looking after. It was actually the IW was completed. We saw no mention of that. So basically, they were just going to lay the conduit, trench it, lay the conduit, pull the wiring, and then just terminate it. And they were just going to let it go. So anyways, this is just kind of bad practices kind of down the line. So I just put the biggest 3 that I saw immediately here. So thank you for taking the time to listen to me address those. And yeah, have a good day.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else that would like to address the commission? Hearing none. Any response would you like to give or no? Okay.
No response. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Not hearing any. I'm going.
I have one.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Mr. Dretsky.
I guess procedurally, we have somebody who owns a corporation that does this sort of work, which and has an opinion that's quite radically, it's different than what the port's proposing. How do we alleviate and make sure that the person who just called in isn't correct? I mean, I'm not an expert. I can't tell you whether 12 inches is adequate or 2 feet ought to be adequate. So, I mean, how do we alleviate the question, and so we feel comfortable going forward that we have a good plan?
Well, I want you guys to
Sir.
investigate it further and put an oversight committee.
Sir,
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
your time is up. We appreciate very much your input, and now we're going to discuss. Thank you. Mr. Coleman?
So what we're reviewing is not the project details. This is a shoreline substantial development permit. So what we're reviewing for the city of Anacortes is, should this project be permitted as they've requested? So what we're largely looking for is the environmental impact. Is it in compliance with the shoreline master program? And so the technical details of how it's installed. Similarly, if this was a sewer line, we would not expect the planning commission to determine if the width and the bends and the angles were accurate, although we appreciate the comment. It's just outside, I think some of the technical details may be outside of what we're trying to achieve through a shoreline substantial development permit. If this project were to be happening outside of the shoreline permit, shoreline area, there would be no public comment or public review for this. So think of it in that context.
Very helpful, thanks. All right. I'm about to close the public comment portion and would entertain comments or a motion from the commission. Mr. Courier.
I would motion to approve as submitted.
Okay, with the 9 conditions of approval?
Correct, thank you.
Okay. Is there a second? Mr. Dretsky has seconded the motion to approve the application for the Shoreline Substantial Development Permit, SDP 2024-0001, as presented with the 9 conditions of approval. Any other comments? If not, let's take a vote.
Commissioner McCombs?
Yes.
Commissioner Ryan?
Yes.
Commissioner Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Stoneman?
Yes.
Commissioner Jaretsky?
Yes.
Commissioner Courier?
Yes.
Motion is approved. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the port for coming as well. And that moves us to item 5A, Planning Commission Procedures. And Mr. Coleman.
Good evening again, Planning Commissioners. I'm the Director of the Planning Community and Economic Development Department, John Coleman. So, as you all know, I started about 11 months ago, and I think I was here for 2 days before we had a Planning Commission meeting, and it occurred to me that we couldn't really find any Planning Commission procedures of record that were understandable. Ours was sort of a mishmash, and so one of the things I wanted to do is just create a new set of rules and procedures for how the Planning Commission operates its meeting. And that's not because I think the meetings are not done well, but I think it makes sense for everybody to understand how a meeting shall proceed. We all know that we operate generally under the Robert's Rules of Order. That's a little bit more technical than what we're trying to do. We're just trying to say, how does a public hearing proceed? And so that is included in these documents. I've already received a couple of questions about this is a total rewrite. So there is no compare and contrast from the previous to the new. The previous rules are not in a consolidated form either, so that was part of the problem, is there was like 3 different documents that were amended but never amalgamated. So it was just a little difficult to read. So we started fresh, and plus those were last updated, I think, in 2002 or 2006. So it's been a long time. So we just started fresh. So that's why you don't see a strike through and underlined version. This is all brand new. And in fact, with the recommended motion, we say to supersede any previous ones. So we know through the record that these are the latest and greatest, that the other ones are just part of the past. The other item about this procedurally is it says in the document that all of the planning commissioners need to be present in order for the planning commission to take a vote on these procedures. Tonight we do not have every member of the planning commission here. We have 6 of 7, which is pretty good, but not good enough for this. So we will not be making a motion to approve this, but it's a good opportunity for us to review it. It's a fairly straightforward document. We didn't think there was a whole lot of legalese in it. It's 7 pages. So hopefully you had a chance to review and I'm not going to walk through it because you're all able to do that. If you have any questions that we can't answer today, we'll have another chance to review this because it will definitely be coming back to the Planning Commission. We'll continue to bring it back to every Planning Commission meeting from now until we have 7 members to vote.
So, Mr. Coleman, if we have suggestions for changes, how would you like those brought?
Let's just talk about it, I guess, unless you wanted to go, unless the commissioners had a alternate idea.
Just talk about it at whenever next meeting. We'll
I mean,
call
you could-
this like a first reading
Are
today.
you saying if you have questions?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I thought you said you did. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, for example, I think there's one area that looks like it just got duplicated. I mean, just easy things.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to point that out, we could look at it now, or you could submit comments and we can, it's nice to have it out for public review instead of you sending an email and us submitting draft changes next time, but we can do it however you like.
Okay, I would like to just take this in as a document for us to kind of chew on, and hopefully at the next meeting we'll have 7 people here, and then if there's changes, we can talk with all 7. That sound okay?
Sounds great. And yeah,
Okay.
if you see anything and you want us to have a clean revised draft to clear up any errors to you at the next time, then we'll be able to, potentially just vote on that next time if we have
Okay.
6 members.
Sounds good. All right. Next thing on the agenda says Planning Department update. Do we have any updates?
I do. Lost him. All right, so you can see on your agenda now we have Planning Department update. This was something that we continue to want to bring back to the Planning Commission, items such as what you might have talked about at a previous meeting that went to council and report back to you on the results of that. Just so happens that at our last meeting, we talked about was the public participation plan, and there was no action on that. So there was no action from the Planning Commission last time, so there's nothing to report back. But I do have a couple of things that I think are of note. One is staffing in the Planning Department. We have essentially 3 full-time planners plus myself that do planning work. Obviously, you all know Libby Grage, who presented tonight, and Grace Pollard, who's presented to you at numerous other occasions. She's our senior planner. And then we have an assistant planner position as well, who generally doesn't come to the Planning Commission meetings. That position has been vacant since the end of February, and so we've been down 1 person the whole time. And through other vacations and illnesses, we've only had 1 planner in the office since March 28th. So that's just been sort of an oddity on top of the other vacant positions. So it's been a little bit challenging in the Planning Department. Just thought you'd like to know. I really like to thank Libby for doing so much work, because the hard work falls on her when there's not an assistant planner or a senior planner around. So thank you very much to Libby. Just thought the Planning Commission would like to know that we're getting by, but we're falling a little bit behind. So if you hear anything in the community, just that information doesn't generally get out, that we're just kind of short on people. But that's not a permanent thing. And then the other thing I want to present is the event center progress. So we've been, City Council's been working on a plan to come up with the port to come up with a plan for a new event, permanent event center at Cap Santa Marina, right in the area where this project, the previous shoreline project that we just reviewed is taking place, right there at the end of 9th Street at the water, just south of 9th. So I think it was probably around the time of our last Planning Commission meeting, there was a joint City Council and Port meeting where they agreed to work together to hire an architect to come up with a rough order of magnitude price for what we want, and come up with some like basic design ideas and layout of a building on the specific site. So that that architect firm was hired last week or so. So now we're just entering the 10-week period where they will be producing that. The port and the city has met with them yesterday and kind of helped kick off what we expect, and so it'll be two or three more meetings. I think it's 3 more meetings with them, including when they present it to the port and the city, at which point it will be presented, of course, to the greater public at large for review. We've started that process, and we're very excited. Looking forward to having a permanent event center and a beautiful location.
Am I wrong? I thought they were going to come back with 2 options.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good.
That's all we have for planning department update today.
Thank you so much. And Ms. Gray, just on behalf of all of us, you do excellent work, and we really appreciate you. All right.
And that Anacortes 2045 was all her idea.
Well, we like it. All right. Hearing nothing else for the good of the order, we are adjourned. 7:31.